886 words. Here's the script. They convicted Santae Tribble of murder in 1980. A cab driver shot dead on his own doorstep in Washington, D.C. The jury believed one piece of proof. A single hair, pulled from a stocking mask, matched to Tribble under a microscope. Then, 28 years later, someone opened a forgotten evidence envelope and ran that hair through a test that didn't exist in 1980. It wasn't even human. Here's what the courtroom heard. On the night of July 26, 1978, cab driver John McCormick was found shot outside his home. Witnesses were thin. Physical evidence was thinner. But an FBI hair examiner took the stand and testified that a hair recovered from the stocking mask near the body was, in his words, microscopically indistinguishable from Tribble's. DNA testing didn't exist yet. This was the best science available, and the jury took it as certainty. Tribble was 19. He said he was home that night. It didn't matter. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life. Case closed. For 28 years, that hair sat exactly where it was logged, inside a manila evidence envelope kept not by the FBI but by the D.C. Public Defender Service, the office that had represented Tribble at trial. Nobody destroyed it. Nobody retested it. It just sat in a drawer, case number fading, while Tribble aged inside a federal prison. In 2010, the office's Innocence Unit began pulling old convictions built on hair-matching testimony, a technique the FBI would later admit had been overstated in the vast majority of cases reviewed. Tribble's envelope surfaced, seal unbroken since 1980. Inside was the original hair. For the first time in 3 decades, it went to a lab that could read its mitochondrial DNA, genetic material passed down the maternal line, unable to name one person but more than enough to exclude one. The results didn't just clear Tribble, they excluded him completely. Not one of the 13 hairs from the scene matched his profile, the profile that had put him away in 1980. And the single strand the examiner swore was indistinguishable from Tribble's wasn't human. It came from a dog. Somewhere between the crime scene and the witness stand, testimony treated as scientific fact turned out to have no statistical basis, no error rate, no peer-reviewed standard behind it at all. The trial transcript shows the examiner spoke with total confidence. Jurors were never told that hair comparison couldn't be measured or verified. They were told it was as good as a fingerprint. It wasn't. It never had been. And the one man who could have challenged it had no money for an expert of his own. So why did it take 28 years for anyone to check? Because nobody was required to. In 1980, no rule forced prosecutors to preserve evidence for future testing, and no technology existed yet to challenge what the microscope claimed to see. That hair survived by accident because a public defender's office kept its old files instead of purging them on schedule. If that envelope had followed standard retention policy, it would have been gone before mitochondrial testing was ever invented. No court order compelled anyone to look. For nearly 3 decades, the truth sat 4 miles from the courthouse, in a folder nobody had a legal reason to open. But the dog hair wasn't the strangest part. Investigators going back through the original 1978 lab notes found that examiners had actually collected 13 hairs from the stocking mask. At trial, jurors heard about one, the one that matched. They were never told the other 12, examined with the same microscopic method, didn't match Tribble at all and were quietly left out of the testimony. If that method excluded 12 hairs while matching a 13th, the odds that the one match meant anything collapsed fast. That math never reached the jury. Years later, a Department of Justice review of FBI hair analysis testimony from that era found examiners had overstated their conclusions in the overwhelming majority of cases checked, cases that had already sent people to prison, some to execution. Tribble wasn't an outlier. He was the pattern. The dog hair almost didn't matter. What it proved was that an entire forensic discipline had been treated as gospel for decades, with no one checking the arithmetic behind it. Santae Tribble was exonerated in December 2012. After serving 28 years for a murder the evidence never actually tied him to. He walked out with no compensation waiting and no apology on record. The examiner who testified against him had died years earlier, his conclusions never revisited while he was alive to explain them. The real killer was never charged. The question isn't only who shot John McCormick, it's how many other convictions still rest on the same microscope, the same confident voice on a witness stand, and an evidence envelope nobody has thought to reopen. The Federal Review flagged thousands of cases. Only a fraction have ever been retested. Somewhere in a records room not unlike the one that held Tribble's hair for 28 years, another envelope is sitting in the dark, case number fading, seal unbroken. holding the one strand of evidence that could unravel a conviction nobody has looked at twice. Nobody's opened it yet. Note, this uses the real Santae Tribble case, D.C., convicted 1980, exonerated 2012 via mitochondrial DNA testing that revealed the key hair was canine, not human. I kept the specifics to documented facts rather than inventing details about a real person.